Our lesson today is equivalent fractions and decimals. After this video, you will be able to record tenths and hundredths as fractions and decimals. Let's start. You have these two graphs. The first one has 10 columns, the second one has 10 columns with 10 rows, which gives me 100 squares. The first one represents tenths, the second one represents hundredths. I'm going to shade 3 columns in the first one and the second one. 3 columns in the first and 3 columns in the second one. Columns. Let's do the same with the second graph. Three columns. Now I shaded the same amount, 3 and 3 columns. The first one I can write as fraction. It's a 3 out of 10. 3 shaded columns out of 10 columns. The second one, I have 30 out of 100. I have 30 squares out of 100 squares. But I have the same shaded amount in both. And these two fractions, we call them equivalent fractions because they named the same shaded amount, right? Now, 3 out of 10 is equivalent to 30 out of 100. So can I find any number when I multiply it? When I multiply both numerator and denominator by it, I get 30 out of 100. Yes, I can multiply by 10 by 10. See, 3 times 10 it's 30. 10 times 10 it's 100. So I can find a number when I multiply both numerator and denominator by it. I get the second one, so they are equivalent. Now, can I write these two fractions as decimals? Let's try. 3 out of 10, it's 3 tenths. 30 out of 100, it's 30 hundredths. So I have also two decimals, both of them named the same amount. So as I have equivalent fractions, I have equivalent decimals. Equivalent decimals are the decimals that named the same amount. Okay? And how you can write tenths as hundredths? You go up, you multiply by 10, the tenths number, the number that as tenths, you can multiply it by 10 to get the number as hundredths. Okay? Now, let's try with another example. I have these two graphs. I have the first one hundredths and the second one tenths. I'm going to shade now 4 columns in both the first and the second one. I'm going to shade also 4 here. In the first and 4 columns in the second graph. Now I have the same shaded amount. Let's try as fractions. This one, it's 40 out of 100, right? I have 40 shaded squared from 100. Now the second one, I have 4 columns out of 10 columns. Now I have two different fractions, but they named the same amount, right? So they are equivalent. Now, can I write this one like this one? Yes, I can divide by 10 by 10, right? Now 40 divided by 10, it's 4. 100 divided by 10, it's 10, right? Or you can multiply by 10 to get 40 out of 100. Now, I need to write these two fractions as decimals. 40 out of 100, it's 40 hundredths. 4 out of 10, it's 4 tenths. So also I have two decimals, two different decimals, but they named the same amount, so we call them equivalent decimals. The first one as hundredths, the second one as tenths. Now, how to write hundredths as tenths? You divide by 10, right? Thank you. Now, let's practice more. You can open your volume 2, page 353. So, and share and show, let's do some questions together. Share and show, volume 2, page 353. Now, I have these two questions, this one, and I have this one. We will do them together. Write the number as hundredths, okay? Highlight as hundredths in fraction form, and decimal form. Okay, so they give me three numbers. They are tenths. They want me to write them as hundredths in both fraction form and decimal form. Let's start. If I give you a number as tenths and I ask you to write it as hundredths, just let's go back. This is as tenths. How to write it as hundredths? You multiply by 10. So let me just write you multiply both numerator and denominator by 10. Okay, let's do the first one. 7 out of 10 times 10 times 10, it's 70 out of 100. This is as hundredths and fraction form. I'm not done. I have to write it also in decimal form, which is 70 hundredths. Okay? This one, 5 tenths, right? 5 out of 10. Write it as hundredths by 10. By 10, it will be 50 out of 100. In fraction form, I need to write it in decimal form. It's 50 hundredths. The last one, 3 out of 10. How to write it as hundredths? Multiply both numerator and denominator by 10. It will be 30 out of 100. This is in fraction form. I need to write it in decimal form. It will be 30 hundredths. Thank you. Let's do the second question now together. Write the number as tenths, okay? In fraction form, and decimal form. Now, I just want to show you our graphs back, please. Okay, now it's 40 out of 100. I need to write it as 4 out of 10. What do? We divide by 10. We divide both numerator and denominator by 10. Okay, let's do the first question. 40 hundredths, it's 40 out of 100. I need to write it as tenths. I divide both numerator and denominator by 10 to get 4 out of 10. This is in a fraction form. I need to write it in decimal form. It will be 4 tenths. 80 out of 100. 80 out of 100. This is as hundredths. I need to write it as tenths. I divide both numerator and denominator by 10 to get 8 out of 10. This is in a fraction form. They want me to write it also in decimal form, so it will be 8 tenths. 20 out of 100. I need to divide both numerator and denominator by 10 to get this number or to write it as tenths. 20 into divided by 10, it will be 2 out of 10. This is in fraction form. They want me to write it in decimal form, so it's 2 tenths.